My name is Savannah Lewis. I was 13 years old that summer, standing at Charlotte Douglas International Airport in North Carolina, watching my entire family check in for a direct flight to Dubai, a full month of luxury they'd been planning for years. My mom had that excited glow as she adjusted her sunglasses on her head, pulling a huge suitcase packed with designer beachwear. My dad was already joking with the gate agent about upgrades, and my little sister was practically bouncing, clutching her new passport like it was a golden ticket. They were all going on this dream trip. Every single one of them except me. My mom turned to me with her brightest smile and slipped a monthly bus pass into my hand. "You're grown now," she said confidently. "This pass is all you need to get around to the supermarket, the library, anywhere for the whole month. You're the big sister, so mature. We know you can handle it. We desperately need this break to finally relax in Dubai. Be good, okay?" My dad chimed in. "Unlimited rides. Kiddo, you can go wherever you want on the bus. We promised we'd send grocery money every week through the app. Plenty for whatever you need. No worries at all." I forced a nod, hugged my sister quick, and watched them disappear through international security, waving until they were gone. Then it was just me heading home alone, that bus pass clenched in my fist like it was supposed to be enough. It was supposed to get me through 30 days while they lived it up halfway across the world. But when they finally cut their trip short and walked back through the front door, my mom froze in the doorway. Eyes wide, took half a step back and whispered in pure shock, "No. No way. This can't be real." Want to know how being left with nothing but a bus pass and broken promises turned into the moment that made my parents regret everything they'd done? Stay to the very end. You'll see exactly what was waiting for them when they came home. If you were 13 and your whole family jetted off to Dubai for a month of luxury while leaving you behind with just a bus pass and promises of money that never showed up, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet to keep the peace, or made sure they faced what they left behind? Tell me in the comments. I read them all. I got home from the airport that afternoon, the house already feeling way too big and empty without anyone else around. The bus ride back had been smooth. The monthly pass swiped me on without a problem, but walking through the front door alone changed everything. No chatter, no music playing, just the low hum of the fridge and my sneakers on the hardwood floor. I dropped my bag in the hallway and went straight to the kitchen, determined to prove I could do this. Mom and Dad had left a small envelope of emergency cash in the junk drawer, about $40 in small bills. So I figured that combined with the weekly transfers they promised would cover the basics until things settled. I grabbed a quick bite from what was already there, then opened my laptop to start the summer online assignments Ms. Torres had sent out. The home Wi-Fi was unreliable, cutting in and out, so I knew I'd be spending a lot of time at the public library branch a couple miles away. The next morning, I packed my charger, a notebook, and a bottle of water, then headed to the bus stop. The pass worked perfectly again, letting me ride as far as I needed. First stop was the supermarket. I picked up essentials: milk, bread, peanut butter, canned soup, bananas, and a large box of cereal. Nothing extravagant, but it felt responsible. The total came to just over $20. I paid with the cash envelope, satisfied that I'd made it stretch. Back home, I organized everything in the pantry, arranging cans neatly and snapping a quick photo on my phone, mostly because it looked adult-like evidence I was managing fine. That evening, I heated soup, streamed a show on my laptop, and messaged my best friend Sierra about how strange but manageable it all seemed. She was away at camp, so responses trickled in slowly, but even those short texts kept me grounded. The following day, I rode to the library again. The cool air and rows of computers made it easier to focus. I finished one module, submitted it, and browsed a bit to kill time. When I checked the family group chat that night, expecting maybe a quick check-in, or the first money notification, what I got instead were photos. A lavish buffet spread from their 7-star hotel plates stacked with lobster, caviar, exotic fruits. Mom captioned it, "Finally indulging." Then a shot of Harmony posing in front of the massive Burj Khalifa at dusk, lights starting to sparkle. Dad wrote, "Tallest building in the world, mind blown." I zoomed in on my sister's huge smile, her new sunglasses perched on her head. They looked so relaxed, so happy. Another message came through, all three of them on a desert safari riding camels against red dunes. Harmony, waving from atop one, laughing. No questions about how I was doing, no. Did the money arrive yet? Just more luxury highlights. I set my phone down and opened the fridge for dinner. The milk was already half gone, fruit dwindling. I poured cereal dry to save what was left. Sitting at the empty table, the silence pressed in harder than before. The pride I'd felt at the airport, the sense that being called mature was a compliment, started cracking. Later that night, alone in the dim kitchen, I picked up my phone and opened the camera without overthinking it. I panned slowly across the sparse shelves, the nearly empty cereal box on the counter, the quiet rooms behind me. My voice came out low. It's been a few days. The house feels huge and empty. They're posting all these incredible pictures from Dubai fancy dinners, the tallest tower camel rides, but nobody's checked if I'm okay or if the money came through. I stopped recording, saved it to a private folder, and told myself it was just for memory. The library became my daily escape. Comfortable chairs, steady internet, people around, even if I didn't talk to them. I'd spread out my work, submit assignments, then scroll through new group chat updates. One afternoon, it was Harmony at the Dubai fountain show, water dancing to lights and music. Mom's caption, "Magical evening." Dad sent a video clip of them dining atop a skyscraper, city lights, stretching forever. My sister looked tiny and thrilled next to the massive windows. I screenshot several, the fountain, the rooftop dinner, the camel ride, adding them to that same hidden folder. Each one stung a little more, proof of how fully they'd immersed themselves in that world, while I rationed bananas and skipped snacks to make the remaining cash last. By then, the envelope was down to a few bills. I'd been careful, buying only necessities, eating smaller portions, but money disappears fast when it's your only source. The promised weekly transfers never arrived. No alert, no explanation. I sent one casual text to Mom asking if the app was working okay. It showed as read almost instantly, but no reply came. That evening, I recorded another clip. Light, low pantry door open to show how bare it had become. "Still nothing from the app," I whispered to the lens. "I've been making do with what was here, but it's running out." Today they posted about shopping at the Dubai Mall. Harmony got new clothes and toys. They look like they're having the time of their lives. My throat tightened, but I saved it anyway. The ache grew heavier each night. I'd finish eating, often just toast with peanut butter by then, and sit in the living room with every lamp on to push back the quiet. The contrast hit hardest when new photos dropped: Mom at a spa, Dad and Harmony at an indoor ski slope inside a mall, all of them at a gold-plated ATM just for fun. Every image screamed extravagance, every caption carefree. One night after another minimal meal, I opened the fridge again and filmed the almost empty interior. "This is pretty much it now," I said softly. "A little bread, some condiments, not much else." They just sent pictures from a private yacht tour today. Harmony waving from the deck, the skyline behind them. It's like they're in a different universe. I ended the recording, sat on the floor with my back against the cabinets, and let the silence settle. The hurt was shifting into something steadier, something that made me keep collecting those screenshots and clips. Not rage, yet just this growing need to document how completely they'd moved on without looking back. How my sister was experiencing wonders I could only see through a screen, while I counted crumbs to make it another day. Focusing on my laptop screen became harder with each passing day. The lack of decent meals left me foggy-headed, and submitting the online summer assignments felt like pushing through mud. My work came back with lower scores than usual, notes from Ms. Torres pointing out missing details and rushed answers. She emailed first, gentle but direct, "Everything okay at home? These don't look like your usual effort." I typed back a quick, "Yeah, just adjusting," but she wasn't convinced. The next message asked for a video call to check in. She wanted to see my face, make sure I was keeping up. I accepted the request one afternoon from the kitchen table, angling the camera so the bare counters stayed mostly out of frame. Ms. Torres appeared on screen, her classroom posters visible behind her. She smiled at first, then her expression shifted as she took in my tired eyes and pale skin. "Savannah, you look worn out. What's going on? Where are your parents?" The question hung there. I'd held it together until then, but her concern cracked something open. My voice came out small. "They're in Dubai for the month. With my sister. It's just me here." Her eyebrows shot up. "Alone. For how long now?" I swallowed. "Over a week. They promised money for food, but it hasn't come. I've been getting by, but I haven't eaten properly in days. No adult has stopped by." She went quiet for a second, processing. Teachers are mandated reporters. She knew the rules as well as I did by then. "This isn't right," she said firmly. "Stay put. I'm calling someone who can help right now." The call ended, and I sat staring at the blank screen, heart racing. Part of me felt relief. The rest felt terrified about what came next. Less than an hour later, the doorbell rang. I peeked through the window and saw Ms. Torres standing on the porch with a woman I recognized instantly, my Aunt Regina Rivera, Mom's older sister, who lived just a few blocks over in the same neighborhood. I opened the door, and Aunt Regina pulled me into a tight hug before I could say anything, her arms trembling. "Oh, honey," she murmured, voice thick. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" Ms. Torres stepped inside, behind her eyes scanning the quiet hallway and empty living room. Aunt Regina kept hold of my shoulders, looking me over like she was checking for injuries. "You're too thin," she said softly. "Let's see the kitchen." They moved past me, and I trailed behind as my teacher opened the fridge door. The cool air spilled out, revealing almost nothing: a jar of pickles, half a loaf of stale bread, a few condiments. The pantry wasn't better, just a couple expired cans and an open bag of rice. Ms. Torres took photos with her phone, expression tightening. Aunt Regina's jaw clenched, but she stayed calm. "This ends today," she said. They didn't lecture or hesitate. Aunt Regina grabbed my hand. "Come on, we're going to the store right now." Ms. Torres drove us in her car to the nearby supermarket, the same one I'd bussed to before. This time felt different. They let me push the cart, filling it with real food: chicken, fresh vegetables, pasta, cheese, fruit, eggs, yogurt. Things I hadn't bought because they cost too much on my tiny budget. The total was higher than anything I'd spent alone, but Aunt Regina paid without blinking. Back home, we unpacked together, the kitchen suddenly full again. Ms. Torres excused herself to make some calls outside, while my aunt started dinner: grilled chicken with rice and steamed broccoli, simple but smelling incredible. As it cooked, I sat at the table and finally let the words spill out. I told them everything: the airport goodbye, the untouched promises of money, the constant Dubai photos that made me feel invisible. I pulled out my phone and showed a few of the videos I'd recorded, the empty shelves, my quiet voice describing how alone it felt. Then the screenshots: lavish hotel buffets, harmony at the top of Burj Khalifa, the family on a private desert tour. Aunt Regina's eyes filled as she watched, hand over her mouth. "Your mother and I need to have words," she muttered, anger flashing before she pushed it down. Ms. Torres came back in, having spoken to someone official. "We're reporting this," she said gently but firmly. "It's not safe for a 13-year-old to be left like this, no matter what they thought." Dinner was ready soon after. We ate at the table, the first proper meal I'd had in too long. The chicken was juicy, the rice flavorful, the broccoli crisp. Warm food in my stomach felt like waking up. Between bites, I answered their questions, explaining how I'd tried to stretch everything, how the silence at night got heavier, how seeing my little sister live that glamorous life while I scraped by hurt worst of all. Aunt Regina reached across and squeezed my hand. "You're not alone anymore," she said. "I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere until this is fixed." After we cleaned up, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was Ms. Zimmerman from Child Protective Services, clipboard in hand, professional but kind. She introduced herself and asked to look around. I led her through the house while Ms. Torres and Aunt Regina waited in the living room. She photographed the kitchen again, noted the new groceries, separately asked quiet questions about meals, sleep, how often anyone checked in. I answered honestly about the missed money transfers, the lack of calls, the way the Dubai posts kept coming without a single "How are you?" She spoke to me alone in my room for a while, making sure I felt safe, talking freely. Then she met with the adults downstairs. I heard low voices, serious tones. When she came back up, her expression was resolute. "This meets criteria for neglect," she explained gently. "We're opening a case tonight. You won't be alone again. We're making arrangements right away." By the time she left, plans were set. I'd stay with Aunt Regina starting tomorrow, and follow-up visits were scheduled. Ms. Torres hugged me goodbye, promising to check in daily. Aunt Regina stayed that night on the couch just in case. Lying in bed later, stomach full for the first time in days, the house didn't feel quite so empty anymore. Someone had finally seen what was happening, and they weren't walking away. I packed a duffel bag with clothes, my charger, laptop, and a few books the next morning. Aunt Regina helped carry it to her car, and we drove the short distance to her house in the same neighborhood. The place felt familiar. Same style homes, tree-lined streets, but stepping inside hers was like entering a different world. The air smelled of coffee brewing and something baking, lights, warm, soft music playing from a speaker in the kitchen. She showed me to the guest room, bright with sunlight through white curtains. "Make it yours for as long as you need," she said, setting my bag down. I unpacked slowly, hanging shirts in the closet, placing my notebook on the nightstand. It already felt safer than the empty house I'd left behind. My phone buzzed with a text from Sierra. Her parents had okayed her staying over for a couple weeks. Aunt Regina had suggested it to help me adjust, and Sierra arrived that afternoon with her own backpack and a big hug. "No way I'm letting you go through this solo," she whispered as we hauled her stuff upstairs. Having her there turned the guest room into something closer to a sleepover. Posters. We taped up temporarily her sleeping bag on an air mattress beside the bed. Dinner that first night was spaghetti with meat sauce, garlic bread, and a big salad, food that filled the table and my plate twice. Aunt Regina let us help Sierra chop vegetables while I stirred the sauce under her guidance. The kitchen filled with laughter when sauce splattered stories about school, normal things I hadn't realized I missed so much. Sitting down to eat together, passing bowls, actual conversation, it settled something deep inside me that had been unsettled for days. After cleanup, we curled up in the living room with bowls of ice cream. Aunt Regina asked if I wanted to talk more about what happened. I nodded, pulling out my phone to show the videos and screenshots I'd saved. We watched a few together, the quiet kitchen clips, my small voice describing the emptiness, the lavish Dubai posts rolling in without any check-ins. Sierra's eyes widened at the hotel suites and private tours. My aunt listened without interrupting, face tightening only slightly when Mom's captions bragged about pure bliss. When we finished, Aunt Regina closed the phone gently. "You were brave to document this," she said. "It hurts to see, but it's important." We talked late into the evening, not rehashing every detail, but about how ignored I'd felt, how the constant glamour shots made the silence at home worse. Sierra shared times she'd felt left out at family events, making me feel less alone in the ache. My aunt promised we'd handle whatever came next as a team. The routine over the following days brought a kind of calm I hadn't expected. Mornings started with breakfast together, pancakes or eggs, fresh fruit, real coffee for my aunt, and juice for us. Afternoons, we'd work on summer assignments side by side at the dining table, Sierra keeping me company, while Aunt Regina ran errands or worked from home. Evenings meant cooking simple meals, tacos one night, grilled cheese and tomato soup, another, always with all three of us pitching in, chopping, seasoning, tasting as we went. The kitchen became the heart of everything, filled with smells and easy chatter. One evening, after a stir-fry dinner, my phone rang with a video call from Mom. The screen showed her in a hotel robe, Burj Al Arab visible through the window behind her. She looked annoyed before even speaking. "Savannah, what on earth is going on? Your school and some agency contacted us. Something about an investigation. Do you have any idea how this looks for us here?" I froze fork halfway to my mouth. Aunt Regina paused the movie we'd been watching and moved closer. Sierra squeezed my arm. Mom kept going. "We left you everything you needed. You're blowing this completely out of proportion. I can't believe you'd cause this kind of drama instead of handling things like we trusted you to." The words stung exactly like the ones at the airport, mature, handle it grown now. But this time, I didn't shrink. "You didn't send the money," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "I ran out of food. No one checked on me." She cut me off. "There was plenty to start with. And you know how to stretch things. This is embarrassing. People at work are asking questions now." Aunt Regina leaned into frame. "April, this is Regina. Your daughter was left without adequate support or supervision. That's not drama, that's reality. The authorities are involved because a child was neglected." Mom's face reddened. "Stay out of this. It's a family matter." The call ended abruptly after that screen going black. The room stayed quiet for a moment. Then my aunt pulled me into a side hug. "You did nothing wrong speaking up," she said firmly. Sierra nodded, eyes fierce on my behalf. The tension from the call lingered, but having them there protecting me, believing me, turned it into something bearable. For the first time, I felt shielded instead of exposed. Ms. Zimmerman scheduled several follow-up visits over the next days, each one more detailed than the last. She met with me privately in Aunt Regina's living room, asking specific questions about daily routines before the trip, how often my parents normally checked in, and exactly what support they'd promised. I answered honestly, describing the airport goodbye, the untouched money transfers, the way meals had shrunk to almost nothing. She also interviewed Aunt Regina and Ms. Torres, separately, gathering their observations from the day they arrived at the house. Ms. Torres provided copies of my submitted assignments, highlighting the drop in quality that first raised her concern. My aunt handed over receipts from the emergency grocery runs, timestamps showing how quickly intervention was needed. Together, they built a thorough file. Ms. Zimmerman requested permission to access my phone records, call logs, message history, which Aunt Regina signed for as temporary guardian. The full group chat thread came through, every Dubai post, every photo of lavish hotels and excursions, every caption celebrating freedom and luxury. None contained a single direct question to me about food safety or well-being. The contrast was stark when laid out chronologically. My videos were reviewed carefully too. Ms. Zimmerman watched each one in full, noting dates from the file, properties, the progression from sparse shelves to nearly empty. She paired them with the initial photos Ms. Torres had taken that first evening, visual proof of how fast things deteriorated. Aunt Regina contributed household bills showing normal grocery patterns before the trip, making the sudden absence of purchases stand out. Ms. Torres added school attendance records confirming I'd still been logging in daily, ruling out any claim I'd been away or unreachable. Through it all, I sat in on parts I was allowed to, listening as the adults coordinated. Hearing the evidence described objectively made it feel real in a new way, not just my private hurt, but something documented, undeniable. One afternoon, Ms. Zimmerman pulled me aside after a session. "Your parents have been formally notified," she explained. "They received an official email requiring a response and explanation. Because of the duration and lack of supervision, the case is moving quickly." She paused, watching my reaction. "They've changed their flights. They're coming back 2 weeks earlier than planned." The news hit like a wave. Part of me felt panic at the thought of seeing them. Another part felt something close to resolve. That evening at dinner, I told Aunt Regina and Sierra I wanted to be at the old house when my parents arrived. I wanted to face them directly, let them walk into the reality they'd ignored. My aunt exchanged a look with Ms. Zimmerman over the phone later. Both agreed it could be arranged with supervision present as long as I felt safe and supported. "It's your voice that matters most here," Ms. Zimmerman said. "If being there helps you feel heard, we'll make it happen." The days leading up to their return built a strange tension. Mornings were calm, helping with breakfast, finishing remaining summer work with Sierra beside me, offering encouragement. Afternoons often meant another meeting or call, updating the file. Evenings we'd talk it through my aunt, listening without judgment as I voiced the mix of nerves and determination growing inside. Sierra stayed close, suggesting we make a list of what I wanted to say if things got overwhelming. We wrote bullet points on paper, simple truths, like the missed money, the unanswered texts, how invisible I'd felt. Reading them back helped steady me. Aunt Regina shared stories from when she and Mom were kids, reminding me this wasn't my fault, that patterns of prioritizing image over care went back further than me. Her steady presence anchored everything. Ms. Zimmerman checked in daily, reviewing safety plans, who would be in the room, how to signal if I needed a break, what happened immediately after. Knowing professionals had my back eased the fear. By the night before their arrival, the mix of emotions had settled into something firmer. I wasn't the kid waiting alone anymore. I had proof, support, and a clear sense of what I deserved: basic care, attention, safety. Facing them wouldn't erase what happened, but it would force them to see it. Lying in the guest room with Sierra already asleep on the air mattress, I stared at the ceiling and felt the shift inside, worry still there, but underneath it a growing certainty that speaking my truth surrounded by people who believed me was the strongest thing I could do. The front door opened without warning that afternoon. Dad walked in first, wheeling a shiny new suitcase still dusted with fine desert sand, laughing over his shoulder about the insane heat at Dubai airport. Mom followed, sunglasses perched in her hair, arms full of glossy shopping bags from the mall, and a massive stuffed camel for Harmony. My little sister skipped in last, hand and grinning, clutching a glittery snow globe of the Burj Khalifa, already chattering about the gold vending machine and the aquarium tunnel. The laughter died the second they crossed the threshold. Ms. Zimmerman stood at the head of the kitchen table, in her navy blazer, folder open. Torres leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Aunt Regina sat tall in the chair opposite me, hand resting protectively on my shoulder. Sierra sat to my right, back, straight eyes locked forward. Every piece of evidence we had prepared lay spread across the table like a deck of cards no one wanted to play. Dad's smile vanished. Mom's shopping bag slipped from her fingers, hitting the tile with soft thuds. Harmony froze mid-sentence, snow globe still raised like a trophy. Ms. Zimmerman spoke first, voice calm and official. "Mr. and Mrs. Lewis, please come in and have a seat. We have some things to go over." They didn't move. Mom's gaze darted from face to face, finally landing on the table. I watched her eyes widen as she registered what was there. First sheet, high-resolution photos Ms. Torres had taken the day they found me. Fridge door open, nearly empty shelves, expiration dates visible on the few items left. Second, grocery receipts from Aunt Regina's emergency runs, bright yellow highlights marking dates and totals right after discovery. Third, printed screenshots of the entire family group chat, dozens of pages. Dubai hotel buffets at $200 a plate. Dad on a yacht at sunset. Harmony feeding giraffes on safari. Mom posing beside a Lamborghini in the mall. Not one message asking if I was alive, let alone okay. Fourth, still frames from my videos, my own tired face, the dark kitchen pantry doors showing nothing but dust. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. She took one involuntary step backward, heel catching the threshold. The words came out barely audible, shaking. "No. No way. This can't be real." I stood up slowly. Everyone's eyes turned to me. My voice didn't waver. You always told me actions have consequences, I said, looking straight at her, then at Dad. This time, they're yours. Silence swallowed the room. Harmony's snow globe slipped from her fingers and shattered on the tile glitter water spreading like fake snow. Dad finally found his voice hoarse. Savannah. We can explain. Ms. Zimmerman raised a hand. There will be time for explanations under supervised conditions. Right now, I'm delivering the emergency order. She lifted the top document from her folder, the official seal bold across the top. Effective immediately, Savannah is placed in temporary protective custody with her maternal aunt Regina Rivera. You are not permitted to remove her from this residence or have unsupervised contact until further court order. Mom's knees buckled slightly. Dad caught her elbow. Harmony started crying, confused looking between all the adults. I didn't look away from my parents. You chose a month of luxury over making sure your daughter had food, I said quietly. This is what that choice looks like. Mrs. Zimmerman continued, voice steady. A full hearing is scheduled within the next 10 days. Parenting classes, psychological evaluations, and supervised visitation may be offered pending compliance. Until then, you'll need to make arrangements elsewhere tonight. Dad's face went white. You can't just take our child? This isn't punishment, Ms. Zimmerman cut in. This is protection. The evidence is clear prolonged absence of adult supervision, failure to provide basic necessities, and complete lack of welfare checks on a minor. North Carolina law is unambiguous. Aunt Regina squeezed my shoulder once, grounding me. Sierra reached under the table and took my hand. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but they didn't move me anymore. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. Savannah, baby, we didn't mean. You didn't think I finished for her. And now we all have to live with that. Harmony's sobs grew louder. Dad bent to comfort her automatically, but his eyes never left the table and the undeniable proof covering it. Ms. Zimmerman closed her folder with a soft snap. Officers are on standby outside if needed for a peaceful exit. I strongly recommend you cooperate. The room stayed frozen for another long beat, the shattered snow globe leaking across the floor like the last bit of pretend magic running out. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel hate. I just felt finished pretending. The courtroom smelled like old wood and copier paper. I sat between Aunt Regina and Ms. Zimmerman at the petitioner's table, hands folded in my lap so they wouldn't shake. Across the aisle, my parents sat stiffly with their attorney dad in a suit that didn't quite fit right anymore, Mom clutching a tissue she hadn't used yet. Harmony wasn't there. The judge had ruled the hearing too upsetting for a 9-year-old. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice, called the case. Zimmerman stood first, laying out the emergency removal order and the evidence binder, the thickness of a phone book. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Every photo, receipt, and message spoke for itself. When it was my turn, the bailiff swore me in. I walked to the witness stand, feeling every eye in the room. The court reporter's fingers hovered over the keys. I kept my answers clear. Yes, Your Honor, they left me with a bus pass and promises of money that never came. Yes, I ran out of food after the first week. Yes, no adult checked on me for the entire time they were gone. No, I never felt safe alone. I told the judge how the Dubai posts kept arriving private jets. 5-course dinners, my little sister on water slides while I rationed cereal and recorded empty shelves at night. I explained the fear that turned into anger, then into resolve. My voice stayed steady even when tears threatened. Aunt Regina nodded encouragement from her seat. Sierra wasn't allowed inside, but waited right outside the doors. Their attorney tried to paint it as a misunderstanding. The Lewises are loving parents who simply misjudged their daughter's maturity, he argued. A one-time error in judgment doesn't warrant permanent separation. The judge asked me directly what I wanted. I looked straight at her. I want to stay with my aunt. I don't feel safe going back. Not now. Maybe not ever. I need time and space to heal without pretending everything's fine. The guardian ad litem, a court-appointed advocate just for me, stood next. She'd interviewed me twice at Aunt Regina's house. Savannah has been consistent, she reported. She shows signs of emotional neglect and anxiety directly tied to the abandonment. Reunification at this stage would cause further trauma. The current placement with the maternal aunt is stable, nurturing, and in the child's best interest. Mom finally spoke when the judge gave her the chance, voice cracking. We made a terrible mistake. We'll do anything, classes, therapy, whatever the court orders. Please don't take our daughter away, Dad added quietly. We thought she was old enough. We were wrong. The judge took a long pause, reviewing the file one last time. Then she ruled. Temporary custody is awarded to Regina Rivera with all rights and responsibilities of a legal guardian. The parents are ordered to complete parenting education, individual therapy, and a psychological evaluation before any supervised visitation can be considered. The department will monitor progress. Review hearing in 90 days. She looked at me kindly. Young lady, your voice was heard today. You're safe now. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Back at Aunt Regina's that evening, the weight lifted another notch. No more wondering when the next call or demand would come. No more pressure to forgive before I was ready. The temporary order meant structure, boundaries, and, most importantly, choice. Ms. Zimmerman explained the next steps over takeout pizza. Classes for my parents had already been scheduled. Their therapist would report compliance. Visitation, if it ever happened, would be on my terms, and only when I said yes. I didn't hate them. I just didn't trust them with my well-being anymore. Aunt Regina tucked me in that night like I was little again, brushing hair from my forehead. You were incredible today, she whispered. I'm so proud of the strength you showed. For the first time since the airport, I fell asleep without checking my phone for new Dubai photos, or wondering if anyone cared whether I'd eaten. The court had drawn the line, and for now I was on the side where I finally felt seen. The final hearing came on a quiet weekday morning. I wore the simple navy dress Aunt Regina had helped pick out, nothing flashy, just something that made me feel put together. The same courtroom, same judge, but the air felt different, less urgent, more conclusive. Ms. Zimmerman presented the updated report first. My parents had completed the required parenting classes and started therapy, but progress notes showed resistance, excuses about work, stress minimization of what happened. The psychologist's evaluation flagged ongoing patterns of prioritizing personal needs over child welfare. The guardian ad litem spoke next. Savannah has thrived in her current placement, she said. School engagement is up, emotional stability markedly improved. Forcing reunification now would undo that progress. When the judge asked if I wished to speak, I stood without hesitation. I'm glad they're taking classes I began. I hope they learn from this. But I'm not ready to go back. I finally feel safe every day, heard, cared for, not an afterthought. Staying with my aunt is where I need to be. The judge nodded, reviewing the thick file one last time. Then she delivered the ruling. Based on the evidence, recommendations from Child Protective Services, the guardian ad litem, and the child's own clear wishes, permanent legal guardianship is granted to Regina Rivera. Parental rights remain intact, but primary custody resides with the guardian until further order or emancipation. This court finds it in the best interest of the minor. It was over. No appeal timeline mentioned, no forced visits looming. Just stability. Life at Aunt Regina's settled into something steady and good. Mornings began with the smell of coffee, and whatever we felt like, making blueberry muffins some days, scrambled eggs with spinach others. I'd set the table while she flipped pancakes, talking about school or plans for the weekend. Sierra came over most afternoons, her parents happy to let her hang out since it kept us both grounded. We'd do homework at the kitchen island, then help prep dinner, chopping onions, seasoning chicken, learning little tricks, like how much garlic was too much. Evenings were ours. We'd grill burgers in the backyard or make homemade pizza dough stretched across the counter while music played. Sierra and I took turns choosing toppings, laughing when experiments went wrong. Aunt Regina joined in, sharing stories from her own teenage years, making the house feel full in a way mine never had. I started handling more on my own too, grocery lists, budgeting the allowance my aunt gave me, planning meals for the week. It wasn't about proving maturity anymore. It was about building skills in a place where mistakes didn't mean being left behind. Some weekends we drove to local parks or the farmer's market, picking fresh produce and trying new recipes at home. Sierra slept over often, the guest room basically split between us. We'd stay up talking about everything and nothing, the kind of conversations I'd missed most when alone. My old family tried reaching out a few times, cards, emails forwarded through the caseworker. I read them, felt the complicated mix of sadness and distance, then chose not to respond, not out of hate. I just wasn't ready, and I didn't have to be. Protecting my peace wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Harmony's name came up sometimes in reports. She was doing okay, adjusting. I hoped she was safe, hoped my parents were learning, but I didn't need to be part of that chapter to wish them well from afar. Looking back now, I understand what real family means. It isn't just blood or a shared address. It's showing up every day, noticing when someone's hurting, putting their needs alongside your own. It's warm meals, honest talks, and the quiet assurance that you matter, not as an afterthought, but as a priority. Irresponsible parents face real consequences in this country, and that system worked for me when I needed it most. But the bigger lesson is simpler: speaking your truth, even when your voice shakes, can change everything. Accepting help from adults who actually see you isn't weakness, it's strength. If you're watching this and feeling invisible in your own home, know you're not alone. There are people who will listen, systems designed to protect you, and ways to build a life where you're truly safe. You deserve that. I found mine, and it started the moment I refused to stay silent.